Welcome to Radio Today broadcasting in Johannesburg on 1485 AM and nationally on DSTV Audio Channel 869.
Conversations with Niki is brought to you by studyapps.co.za, South Africa's leading education app for tablets. Well, welcome to Conversations with Niki. Niki Seberini here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's great to be with you. I'd like to start off by welcoming our syndication partners. In Joburg, it's Eldo's FM and Chai FM, Kawi FM, Port Alfred, West Coast FM in Namibia, 90.3 MC in Plet, Knysna FM, Wild Coast FM in East London, and Bay FM in PE. Welcome. And just a reminder that all the shows are podcast and they're put onto the website www.conversationswithniki.co.za. And Niki is spelled N-I-K-I. So if you want to look back at any of the interesting conversations that we've had in the past, just go to the website. And if for any reason you cannot finish listening to today's conversation, I will be putting that onto the website within the next day or two. So let's talk about things that you and I find valuable. Well, I suppose we all find different things valuable, but many things in this world which we would probably agree to being valuable is our health, family, friends, work, I would say peace. But do you agree that perhaps one of the most valuable things that you can have is time? And that success and failure in all aspects of your life depends on how you use this precious commodity. Now, perhaps you feel the same way I do about time, and that is that there just isn't enough of it. There's never enough of it. Maybe it's just that I'm not using it properly. I don't know. It keeps running away from me. The late Stephen Covey, author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, said that the key is not spending time, but investing it. And what we decided to do for today's show is to invite 2 highly effective people onto the show to share their stories of how they got to where they are today, and to find out a little bit more about how they have mastered, or perhaps not mastered, their use of time. I'm going to be chatting to CEO of Get Organised, Tracey Faulkes. She'll be giving us tips on how to use our time effectively, and that'll be a little bit later. But first and foremost, let's welcome our guests onto the show. Mandi Fine, CEO of Fine Healthcare, and who also incidentally has been invited to be a member of the 2013 Global Awards Executive Jury. So hi, Mandi, and well done. I mean, that's fantastic. Thanks for joining us.
I'm very excited about being in New York next week.
Lucky. Is that it?
And going to be judging some healthcare communication, the world's best. So it's a real honor, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Listen, it's an honor for South Africa, but we're going to get back to it. So thanks, Mandi, and thanks for joining us. And also Kabelo Kale, co-founder of Keys Communications, and they are Township Media Specialists. Kabelo, welcome.
Good afternoon, Nick, and good afternoon to your wonderful listeners.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. So I'm going to start off with ladies, because, I mean, I don't know, Mans. I don't know. I mean, you're a high-powered woman. I don't know if you believe that ladies should go first, but I do.
Thanks. We accept that.
So, I mean, what do you think? Do you think that time is as valuable as I make it out to be?
Absolutely. I think time management and using time effectively is critical to well, certainly in my life it's a constant juggle with kids and business and family and friends and a social life, and
it sounds like you're balancing it well.
Well, I'm working on it. I think it's a constant challenge. It's a constant issue, and every day, looking at one's time every day, is one has to decide what you're going to do with it and how you're going to spend it, and whether one does that consciously or unconsciously. It's very much a part of my life, because there's so many facets of it.
So many things you have to do. So, Mandi, I just find it fascinating that you have an MSc in nutrition and neuroscience. So that is like the field of science. And yet every single day you talk about creatively communicating and marketing in the healthcare industry. So how on earth do you marry the two? How did one evolve into the other?
Well, Niki, I have this dichotomy in my brain, as most people do, but I struggled when I was at university to decide whether to follow my passion for science or I always wanted to be on the stage or to be a drama queen. So thank you for the stage today.
Welcome.
And so while I was studying my science degree, I was also studying drama. And when I finished my master's, as excited as I was about the scientific endeavor, I realized that the lab for me was a lonely place. And I wanted to bring the knowledge of health sciences to a broader audience. And so for me, the perfect match of my left and right brains was to go into healthcare communication. And it's my passion. It's what I love. So,
but how easy or difficult was it to come to that decision? I mean, that's a huge step in the right direction. Some people can wait many years before they take that right step.
I don't know how I got there. I do remember as a young student finishing my master's thinking I need to be more in the creative space.
Okay.
And how do I do that without losing my love of health sciences? Looking in the yellow pages for advertising or communication agencies that specialized in healthcare marketing. And at that time, it was certainly not a specialty or a niche that was well established in this country. It was very well established in developing markets like the US and Europe. And we're seeing today the emergence of health communication being so important in our society, and particularly with the issues that we face in South Africa. But at that time, there were a few. I looked them up. I phoned them one by one, and I found myself a job as a copywriter in a healthcare communication agency.
With the masters in
neuroscience and nutrition, but I was writing medical copy and reviewing medical papers.
That's good.
And learning an enormous amount and kind of sponging up everything I could about advertising and communication. And very quickly I realized that I wanted to be on the client side of that business and started interfacing with multinational pharmaceutical companies, healthcare companies, and understanding how to bring health messages to South Africans in simple ways. Because they're sometimes complex messages. So it really...
Well, that's the secret,
Yeah, it's been a journey.
And you were overseas, and then you came back, and that's when you started Fine Healthcare.
Yes, I was very, very fortunate to travel to New York, which is my second favorite city in the world.
And favorite city, of course, is...
Jersey.
Kabelo, she's lucky, huh?
Absolutely,
I mean, all right.
I'm a Joburger born and bred. And so my time in New York was incredibly exciting, valuable, a huge learning curve in terms of the developed world's understanding of the importance of health messaging, and then being able to come back to South Africa at a time when HIV and AIDS and TB and malaria, the issues that we still face, cardiovascular disease, big issues that plague our society, and where there was little emphasis on the communication around patients being empowered about their health and taking action. So it's been I've been very fortunate to find a niche that I personally love, that meet my needs in terms of the loves that I have, the science and the drama or the communication, and for it to be
what a comfortable fit. It's a comfortable fit.
But that niche is also my blessing is that I live in a country where, and in any country, but particularly in South Africa, where the need for that specialized communication is so great and can change people's lives, literally, in terms of how they behave and how they act in terms of their own health and others.
Mandi, starting your own business, it's one thing to have the passion and merging the two sides of the brain, but do you think it takes an entrepreneurial spirit to just, I mean, is it a leap of faith to start your own business? What did it take for you personally?
I think a moment of madness. A little bit of naivety. You need a lot of naivety. And also, yes, an entrepreneurial spirit, but more importantly, I think people who support you. So while one does it or you don't do it on your own, we think about entrepreneurs starting their own businesses and being on their own. But for me, my journey has always been marked by very influential and supportive people that have allowed me or helped me or supported me in that dream.
I think that's very important. I want to come back to that because people talk about mentors and always looking up to someone and trying to live up to something. But we'll come back to that. Kabelo, let's ask you. I mean, you were born in Zimbabwe. Your father's Zimbabwean.
My dad is Zimbabwean.
Okay.
Yeah, I was born in South Africa.
And your mother and your father were self-employed.
Yes.
And that's what you grew up seeing, self-employed parents. So how did that influence you growing up and, the decisions that you then made later on?
Well, I mean, they did work, at some stage as domestic workers, and my dad was what they called then a garden boy, which is garden service people. And when they eventually decided that she wants to have her own shebeen and my dad would support her, you see consumer behavior, in the products that are highly in demand from the people that are coming to buy alcohol in the house. So, okay, we want this type of brand. You kind of know what they like, and how my mom would stock more of a particular brand more than less of the other one, and you can see even over time what would be the most popular product. So she came in, because we were staying in a block of flats, in an environment where for her at that time it was a niche because no one was selling the product that she was selling. So she saw a gap, she filled it in with this business that she had. So, and obviously how she manages her finances and making sure that she replenishes stock on time. And so you see those things, and once you go to business school or once you start having your own businesses like we have, you can see all of those things, relating back to themselves, finance management, stock replenishment, making sure that you've got stock, making sure that, because she used word of mouth a lot as far as marketing is concerned, marketing a product, how she maneuvered herself amongst her own peers, who were, at that time would be either, again, domestic workers or, garden service guys who would come and, kind of pass a long time or just enjoy the socialness or the sociability of not working at that particular time.
Listen, that takes a great leap of faith. I mean, for your mother to open up a shebeen, but you've said, I mean, your father supported her, which is what Mandi said, to have this group of people supporting you. I mean, did you see the highs and the lows? You're talking about all the positive things that you learned from it. Were there some hard times, and did that perhaps make you think about rather being employed because of the safety and security of being an employee as opposed to having your own business?
Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing. What the people on the ground, which is what I would call my mom's business then, you also experience, on your most or more organized, formal businesses, from, regulation, the caretaker at the time would not have it with noise, to mixing business with pleasure, because I mean it was both their businesses and they would take strain and you'd feel it in the house. So you learn those things. And when my wife Anissa Kale and myself started our business, which is Keys Communications, you bring that with you. You start defining the lines of what's important and what's not important and how to manage it based on how you grow up. Because I think when you grow up there's quite a lot of observation as opposed to participating, and that for me, my growing up watching my parents do it and her parents as well. Funny enough, we're doing what my parents were doing, although not alcohol, more like in the spaza shop business and stuff like that. So as I was observing on the one end, she was observing on the other end. So both our passion for entrepreneurship were kind of grown in and built upon those foundations.
Is it something that you were attracted to in her?
No, she was beautiful. I mean,
I have no doubt.
She remains beautiful, and I think
just got all the points.
Exactly. They say you eat with your eyes. I just kind of saw her and I just fell in love with her before I even knew her personality. So with her, it was actually love at first sight.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So how long had you been married before you decided to go into business together? Well, start your own business.
Yeah, we've been together for 13 years. Married since 2004. Well, we had our reception very late. Finances, we had to save some money.
Right.
And then we started our business 2009. It's about 9 years, after we met.
Now, you said you watched your parents working together and you saw the good and the bad.
Absolutely.
So you knew what to look out for.
Yeah.
So how has it been working so closely with your wife? I mean, do you switch off? We were talking about time a little bit earlier. Do you have that little off switch where you look at one another as husband and wife, parents to your kids, without bringing the business into it?
Absolutely. I don't think there's a formula to it, in a sense of how, one would go about it, to say between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock, I'm a mom or I'm a dad.
Okay.
So we are full-time parents as much as we are full-time, business people. And I think what we have decided is that over time, is that we'll have lots of fun with our kids, lots of fun with ourselves, outside of the business. So we find ourselves taking a whole lot of, vacations outside of South Africa, to forget, the stress that comes with work as well. However, when you get home, and this is something that she perfects more than I do, because I'm in work mode all the time. When we get home, she's the perfect person. She cooks. 5:30, the food is ready.
Does she do the cooking?
Yeah, she does the
That's
cooking,
impressive,
and she's amazing. She's the best cook ever. I haven't tasted any better food. So she does the cooking. She becomes a mom. She helps the kids, with the homework. I help them with Afrikaans because I grew up in Kimberley and before Soweto, so I only help them with Afrikaans. And she's a maths guru, English guru, and I just watch them, interacting. So we try and spend much time with us, because the thing is that what I think a whole lot of married people always talk about is that they don't have time for themselves as husband and wife.
So they have date nights or whatever.
Exactly, to talk. So we have formal date nights. We have an hour, 30 minutes every night before we sleep. We talk about issues like how you feeling, what are your challenges? Is there anything wrong? So we communicate a lot, So I think those lines, in as much as they're flexible, we have created, kind of blocks or airbags in our lives to say, okay, that's for the kids, that's work, and that's family time, and this is us time. However, they are not demarcated within a day to say 6:30, 4:30, but whatever, dinner's always ready, our life is amazing.
You're balancing.
Businesses,
you're finding the balance. You're finding the balance.
And I get to see my boys. She gets to see her girls.
Well, we'll find out a little bit more about that balancing. But key is communication. I mean, it's so unique what you're doing, because you're working in the township, and it's all about murals. Tell us a little bit more.
Well, Keys Communications, we are township media specialists, and it's quite a bold claim that we make, because what we have decided when we started the business. In fact, the business was basically started on that proposition that we want to be township media specialists. And then we developed something, which we call the ABCD model. The ABCD model is asset-based community development model. So we look at existing township structures. We beautify them and we make them beautiful for advertising. Now, wall media is one of them. We look at, our careers have always been built around marketing. Our passion is marketing. We build our whole professional lives around marketing, but notwithstanding the fact that we are also from the township. So we know the socioeconomic dynamics within the townships. And when we established Kids Communication, we wanted to establish something that will feed our passion, but at the same time, always remind us of where we come from. And this world media, this ABCD model, is a perfect model that actually gives back to the township, but also brings in or gives brands, big, brands like the likes of Coke, Nike, Supersports, access to South African townships. So it's kind of what we call a entrepreneurial philanthropic model that gives back and at the same time augments the success and growth of business and brands.
So you're beautifying the townships. Yes. You're bringing the brands into the township, and the community is gaining.
Absolutely.
So what happens? If one of your clients, for example, decides to paint a whole lot of murals, first of all, how do you select? I mean, are you in all the townships around South Africa? All of them?
We are in all the 9 provinces, all the strategic, townships, bankable townships, what we call, where there's quite a lot of economic activity.
Yeah.
So we that's where we operate. And then if Coke would come and say, listen, I'm looking for so many walls in this particular townships. Ours is to give you heightened noting opportunities as well as good coverage within those townships. So we look at exits, entrances of those townships, the heights as well as the underbellies, because at the end of the day, there is always a certain point that you use to go into the township and the same point to go out of the township. So we look at those entrances and we give you a nice coverage, around those townships.
And of course, these walls belong to people. They belong to the people who live in the townships,
Yes.
and that's where it's so philanthropic, because
Absolutely.
it's giving back. If you can just
Absolutely.
explain how that works.
Absolutely. So we've got landlords. We don't own those walls.
Uh-huh.
We are like in a township realtor business. We've got landlords that we go to them and say, Mama, and you must. I think one thing that every time when somebody says, how's that business going, and I always say, oh, look, man. In the past month, we fed a child-headed family of 10. Last week, a certain gogo managed to board a taxi for the first time to go fetch a pension. So there are certain things, small but very big. These are issues that affect the township and really kind of help those people, our people, with whatever daily issues that they have, from HIV/AIDS, parents dying or kids dying, to unemployment. It's always a surprise. I remember the first time when we came to a few of those go-go's, because at the end of the day, the people that are owning the houses in the townships, 90% of them are old people, like go-go's, our parents. We don't have houses in the townships because they were, allocated quite a while back.
Yeah.
So the owners, the real owners, the go-go. So you're managing, a go-go. Some of them, they have kids who don't work. Some of them have died and left, kids find that, the entire, family is wiped out by HIV/AIDS. Some of them have, there's quite a whole lot of, township issues, cancer, TB, a whole lot, maybe the dad has died of a heart attack. So I think we're coming in and be the messiah, of our people. But at the same time, we're actually giving brands, access to our people as well. Because at the end of the day, there are people within the township that are very economically active.
What do you call that? Win-win. Win-win. And
absolutely mutual. It's a mutual benefit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So Kabelo, I mean, you must have had, just before I stopped with Mandi, we were talking about mentors, because Mandi was talking about these incredible people who have supported her through her process and through her journey. And over the years, I've interviewed really interesting entrepreneurs, and they all talk about one important thing, and that is having mentors. And I don't know if we place enough importance on getting and finding mentors in life, and actually approaching people and say, look, I love what you do, and I would love to learn from you. Would you be prepared to teach me? Would you be prepared to take me under your wing? Now, it's easy to look at the likes of the Richard Bransons or, the Steve Jobs, who we could look up to and read their books and try them. But it's so much nicer to bring it closer to home. So I'm going to start off asking you, Mandi. I mean, have you had, in your life growing up, besides the bigger people, as I've said, the bigger businessmen and women that perhaps you haven't had immediate contact with, but have you had mentors
Absolutely,
who have guided you?
Nick. And the interesting thing is that they're people who are usually, they're not people who are far from you, who you look up to, who seem unapproachable or out of your world. They're people who are close, who are right there, and sometimes we don't see them as mentors. So in my life, for example, my drama teacher as a young girl was an absolute mentor. And then when I moved into advertising, Alan Teager, who was an advertising guru, was an absolute supporter and a mentor. And today my business partners, even though they're my partners, they both have a little bit more grey hair than I do, and they've seen a lot of life, and every single day they mentor me, and I'm so grateful that they're close to me. They're people that are close to me.
Absolutely.
And you too, Kabelo.
Yeah, And this is what I always say, that you don't want, and the whole thing of mentoring and you know, looking at, you know, senior people who have made it. It's not a function of you wanting to duplicate that person and wanting to standardize whatever formula that made them special. I think I choose them different, and I've got people that come to me and say, how do you do it? And I always tell them, listen, look at a particular quality in a person that you like. It could be that this person you know, it's an outspoken person, and you are a bit of an introvert. Go learn from them so that you can be in a position to, you know, speak, to disseminate whatever, you know, ideas that you have, that, you know, to be able to articulate properly. I choose them that way based on their qualities as opposed to what they do. I have a whole lot of people saying, we want to do, you know, what Keys Communications is doing. I'm like, it's awesome. You know, Keys Communications is a great model, it works, but would you be able to sustain yourself if we move away, you know, from yourself? What are you looking for? I think people need to look at, you know, a function of saying we are looking at, you know, different qualities that we can learn from Niki. Niki is very outspoken. She speaks very well on radio. I want to be able to speak very well, but not necessarily be a TV, a radio presenter or a TV presenter. I'll come to you and say, Nix, please, you know, I wanna be articulate. You know, I wanna speak well. I want people to listen to me when I speak, and you have that quality because, you know, people listen to you on a daily basis. So that people, I always say people must choose their mentors, you know, because that's how I look at, you know, people. And that I've always been a shy person. You know, I've always been very scared to speak in public, and I'd you know, go to people and say, how do you do it? You know, teach me or show me. And
people being generous with their knowledge.
Absolutely. And their time.
It's amazing how generous people are when you ask them.
For me, mentors have always been friends, or I've always had relationships with. So they are, when I say they're people that are close to me, I think we talk about time management. If we don't think about our lives as compartments, work, home, social life, children, and even in the context of clients or work or business partners, they become part of one's lives. And if we can talk to them about life and learn life lessons from them and be inspired by them beyond the rational work environment, we can be emotionally and spiritually guided or inspired by those people. Sometimes I think we tend to think of things in boxes, and mentors are more than you know, a work mentor or a life mentors,
and possibly so unexpected. You can just come across someone, or you know, get back together with people, and these things can happen. So, you know, I was mentioning that I went to this fantastic seminar on philanthropy. It was hosted by Nedbank, and one of the speakers, Clem Santo, turned around and said, you know, philanthropy is not just about people who have a lot of money and who give. It's about all people loving it, because philanthropy, it's about loving men. You're loving your fellow man, and it's having an opportunity to give. And just as you're talking about being a mentor, I'm just wondering, people who are listening right now, if they would be threatened by someone coming along and saying, can you share your skills, or can you share your ideas, or are we in a space where people are happy to share and give of their time? Because that is, there it is. It's like what you're doing in the townships with the philanthropic work. I think it's very important, mentorship, especially in this country, especially with the problems in education that we have. Now listen, Mandi, you do incredible work with Fine Healthcare, with the Ikageng Itereleng.
Is a Soweto-based organisation.
I mean, you look after 2,000 orphaned. Yes.
Well, Ikageng do, and we. I just want to congratulate Kabelo, because the work that he does is so inspiring, because it's about so much more than work, and it's about bringing so many parts of your life together and inspiring and reaching so many other people. With Ikageng, we have tried at Fine Healthcare to do what is traditionally known as corporate social responsibility, corporate social investment, a little bit differently. I'm not a great believer in the check or the T-shirt and and Coke can kind of food parcel way of doing charity or corporate social responsibility, and that's why I so admire Kabelo. We have tried to empower that organization with the skills that we have in ours, and so it is very much about an open sharing of skill, and so Ikacheng, when I met Carol Dianti, the founder of Ikacheng, they were only supporting about 90 children who were living in child-headed households, and they needed infrastructure, admin, financial support, financial advice. And those are things we do in business every day.
Right.
Those are things that are core to our environment and to what we do. But for an NGO, those are very difficult skills to come by because they're expensive, and we take them for granted in the business world. So we upskilled and we shared our knowledge of those core business infrastructure building tools with Ikacheng, and I'm very proud to be associated with them, and for them to have reached the point of supporting many children today. And
wonderful. Really.
And so the challenges grow, and so the needs and the sharing of skill
Sounds
becomes
great. And aptly, Ikacheng means build yourself. Use whatever you have.
Build yourself.
talking about mentors.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. We'll continue, and then we're going to be inviting Tracey Faulkes, CEO of Get Organised. And Tracey's going to be giving you a few tips on how to use time, although we haven't really asked these two amazing, highly effective people in the studio exactly. Kabelo sort of hinted at it. And we'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Esvia Prinsloo, and I'm the HOD of IT Integration at Bridwin Preparatory School in Melrose. We started using study apps about 6 months ago and have seen astonishing results. We were quite amazed to see how quickly the kids have been able to use study apps and the benefits it has shown with regards to reinforcing what they've already learned inside the classroom. I would highly recommend study apps for any school.
Studyapps.co.za. Well, welcome back. It is Conversations with Niki. Thanks for tuning in. Niki Seberini here. Of course, welcoming our syndication partners. That's Bay FM in PE, Wild Coast FM, East London. That's Neisner FM, 90.3 MC FM in Plet, West Coast FM. That's in Namibia, Kawi, Port Alfred, and Elders FM and Chai FM here in Joburg. We're talking about this very precious commodity, which there just seems to be very little of, and that's time. And I have in the studio two people who just do a lot. They've started their own businesses. They've had tremendous success, and they have families and they have wonderful lives, and they manage to juggle it. And so we're talking about how to juggle and what to do with time and how to manage time and how to prioritize and see when things are or are not important. So I have Mandi Fine, CEO of Fine Healthcare, who's in the studio, and Kabelo Kale, who is the co-founder of Keys Communications. And in a moment, I'll be chatting to Tracey Faulkes, CEO of Get Organised. So, Mandi, Kabelo was saying that, he doesn't say that at this time this must happen. And I've got a feeling that you don't either, because you don't like that kind of structure, just based on what you've said. But, I mean, how do you, in a day, how do you prioritize and decide for yourself what is and what is not important?
It's a very good question, Nick. But
I mean, you're still trying to work it out.
No, I think one of the important things for me, what's really important for me, is structuring in downtime. So I'm very good, well, I'd like to think I am, at planning my downtime, because if you don't structure it in, it won't exist.
Okay.
So I plan into my day my leisure activities that are my relaxed time. So
and are they non-negotiable?
They're non-negotiable.
Okay.
I plan in my yoga classes, I plan in my pottery, and I plan in my kid time, and I really try to make those like client meetings or board meetings, because they're as important. If I let go of those things in my life, I really start to feel the stresses of running my own business.
Were you always like that, though?
Definitely not. And I think the key to the shift for me is having really, really good people in my organization and in my home, and supporting me, my family, and trusting people to do the things that in the early days of being an entrepreneur, in the early days of the business, I would have done myself. So there are two things. One, structuring downtime, and the other is trusting people to do the things that you don't have to do. and having really, really good people for me has been a key.
That's an interesting one. Things that you don't have to do. Again, so then how do you sit and decide what do you have to, what is important and what isn't?
One of the things I struggle with, and it's a little saying we have in the agency, it's like you can't be the soccer player and the referee. So often I want to dive into the detail and play soccer or do the ad or write the communication or think about the strategy.
Yes.
And then I also have to pull myself up and be the referee and judge it and understand whether it's on brief and whether it's going to meet our client needs or have the right communication and message and output. And very quickly as an entrepreneur you realize, Kabelo will relate, that you can't be the referee and the soccer player, and you have to have both skills in an organization, and you have to allow people to you have to mentor them, you have to inspire them to do the work and to own it, to love it, and then you can help them refine it, make it finest, and make it better.
I came across a quote. Steve Jobs said, your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. So Kabelo, if you're listening to your voice and you're following your dream and you know what it is you want in your business and you're doing it, how do you then, as Mandi was saying, hand over the reins to another person? How do you have the confidence that this person is going to do it with the same amount of conviction, passion? How do you trust? Has that been a difficult process for you?
Well, we have been, my wife and I in this case, and the good folks at Keys Communications have always been fortunate enough to surround ourselves with what we call people that are better than us in thinking.
Better than, okay, I like that.
In thinking, and behavior as well. So it's and you're dealing with adults, and they have somehow. We find ourselves that we don't have to give instructions all the time. You have a meeting, you say, guys, the brief has come in, this is what we have to do when, and so we've never been in an unfortunate situation of micromanaging people, because we find ourselves being managed as leaders as well, where people come and say, this is what you have to do, and this is what we're thinking. So our team is people that are above us, that we find ourselves learning more from them. So I think you in as much as people might be guilty by association, I also think that they are or can be in a position where they can benefit by association if you surround yourself with high thinkers, people who live deeply.
Okay, so, and I suppose it then obviously frees up your time because you are trusting these people to do whatever they have to do. So let's bring Tracey into the conversation. Tracey Faulkes, CEO of Get Organised. Tracey, hi, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi.
So Tracey, you are the CEO of Get Organised, and it's all about that, getting people to be very organised. And I have Kabelo and Mandi in the studio, and clearly they are. I spoke about highly effective people, and they're doing it properly. But there are a lot of people, myself included, who may not necessarily get it right, and aren't as organised when it comes to downtime or prioritising or seeing really what is important and perhaps what is urgent. What would you say to people who are listening right now about organizing time and about trying to find that balance?
Okay, so I'm sure that even Mandi and Kabelo will concur that even regardless of being super efficient and wonderfully organized, life sometimes throws us curveballs, and everybody, it's not like a constant smooth sea where there is no waves and it all works perfectly, whether you're planning it or not. Maybe that would be good, maybe it wouldn't, but our time is more like the sea, a rough sea coming in, and sometimes the tide is high and sometimes the tide is low. So regardless of your current level of organization or work-life balance or time management skill, there are times, or there will be times, that you have wobblies or your perfectly efficient team that you could usually rely on could be having a wobbly.
They're nodding. They are nodding in agreement.
So, I've only had the privilege of listening to about 5 minutes of this conversation, but I think it's important for people to realize that while highly efficient, organized people might on the outside look like everything's always hunky-dory, it isn't necessarily so, because we also just happen to be human.
Right.
So that means everybody else.
I feel much better.
I know, there's always that great sigh of relief. Okay, I'm normal. You can imagine how much pressure there is on me as a productivity expert to be this perfect, arrive on time, never late, things going according to plan. Life happens, and that's what's great, that keeps us on our toes. So for everybody else, for the employees or the business owners, the entrepreneurs, the stay-at-home moms, everybody else that is fighting for this juggle, I think it's also important to understand that it is possible. So it is possible, but it doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be stagnant. It doesn't have to be so much effort that you're constantly fighting. So over at Get Organised, we talk about effortlessness. I'm not sure if that's a word. It's a word we use, effortlessness, as well as fun productive. So productivity can be fun, and we really need to strive at asking or searching for ways for things to be as effortless as possible for it to be more effective. So it's not about overcomplicating things. Work-life balance starts by having clearly defined goals. So in other words, knowing what it is that you want to achieve. And only when we really know what we want to achieve can we go out and make that happen, or prioritize our time effectively, or say no, or delegate like both Mandi and Kabelo do so well. Delegate to people. We have to know what is really important to us first in order to be able to manage our time more effectively. So, yesterday I was speaking to a large audience. I have a talk called The Power of Three, which focuses on the three fundamentals of productivity. And time management is only one of them. We can't manage our time effectively if we don't know what we want to achieve out of life. Right. And we can't do either of those effectively if we don't have good systems in our physical environment, in our environment, in order to support what it is that we're making time to achieve. So it's not a standalone time management magic wand, wave it, and then all of a sudden you're perfect.
Right.
Bit of a journey.
Okay. So it's the three that work together.
In my opinion, yes. You need to have that. You can't have balance if you don't manage your time, and your space doesn't support that, or your environment doesn't support that. But if you don't know what it is that you're going out to achieve, how are you going to know whether you got that or not?
So I suppose once you know what you want to achieve, that then becomes a priority. Or the goal in getting it, because we get distracted, don't we? I mean, just if we just look at the practical things, if you think of switching on your computer or opening up your iPad or your tablet, and all of a sudden there are 55 emails, and they're all glaring, they're all shouting at you to open them and to respond, please, immediately. And I don't know if everyone else gets as stressed out as I do when it comes to email and clearing out my inbox. But that's just a practical way of dealing with things, and I seem to carry it the whole day. And I don't know how important that is in the whole scheme of things, in what I actually want to achieve. I don't know what to do with that.
Okay, so maybe we should chat about the absolute bare bones basics of time management. That might help set some perspective.
Great.
So first of all, we need to understand that time management boils down to choice. So what makes Mandi and Kabelo more successful than you and me, possibly, is they're making wise choices. And time management, the commodity that we can't find or buy more of, depends on the choices that we're going to make, and sometimes we don't make the wisest choices.
Okay.
So we control that. Sure, there's external circumstances, but we control how we're going to react to those external circumstances or limitations, etc. So we know that. The first part of time management is to have a list, one list. At Get Organised, we talk about one life, one list. So choose the one that works best for you. It might not be perfect, but instead of using an app like Wunderlist or to do as a physical app on your iPad or your cell phone, as well as something like Microsoft Outlook tasks, as well as something as a notebook, as well as the serviette from lunch that you wrote to do on. Consolidate that to one, and whether it's paper or electronic, it's irrelevant. You go with the one that works best for you.
Right.
And stick with that one. Once we consistently dumping the spaghetti in our brain onto this list, that's when we can prioritize what is more important to us. And prioritization is not about only doing the most important things, but it's about doing the high-value, important things early on in the day when our energy levels are high.
Okay.
As opposed to saying, well, you know what, I've got this big, fat, intensive project that I need to focus on. I'm going to do that later on in the day, once I've got all my meetings and all my my emails and all my quick, fast, and easies out of the way. Because later on in the day, we're tired. Our energy levels drop. And even though they might pick up again slightly at 3 o'clock, studies show worldwide that they're not as active as they are first thing in the morning. So reserve first thing in the morning instead of for meetings, instead of for checking email, for focusing on your high-value, high-priority tasks that you chose the afternoon before when your energy levels were low.
And deal with meetings and answering emails later on in the day.
Later on in the day, emails, I mean, such a contentious issue. One of my Irish business partner wants us to do away with it altogether, but there is such a thing as good email management. It can be an amazing time productivity tool that can get you out of the office quicker, but it can equally hold you ransom to your computer for the entire day. So email, you know, on average, we recommend that our clients check into email. Maybe take a deep breath and sit down if you're standing right now. We always get rolled eyes at this comment. We should check email, you know, 3 half-hour sections a day for checking email. That is a mindful, focused half an hour where we're using an acronym FAD, File, Action, Delete, and making immediate decisions as to what needs to happen with the emails that are in our inbox. Do we delete them? Do we file them, then drag and drop them immediately? Or do they require an action? And if they require an action, we need to add that to our to-do list so that we can prioritize it accordingly, instead of just taking email as the only law, the only thing that we prioritize from. If it's in my inbox, I will respond to it now regardless of the value.
Kabelo, I see you nodding. I mean, is this what you do when it comes to your email?
You know what? It's something that I would love to do, but we are so consumed by technology. It's not funny. I find myself looking at my phone, my laptop. It's you always wanting, because I'm of the belief that when I send an email, I want to see a response within 10 minutes. So I also behave in that way as well. So I find myself looking at my my MacBook, my phone all the time. So it consumes, and you don't realize that. 3 years later, you find yourself, your neck is even sore because the whole day you're just looking at your phone and trying to do something. So it does consume. So
it invades your life.
Absolutely.
I mean, and you, Mandy?
I'm the same, unfortunately.
I wonder if we had to say, put your phone down. Exactly.
And if I leave it somewhere, it's like I feel so lost without it. But I think that what I am doing is probably this file act kind of delete thing in an unconscious way, even if it's not in a conscious way, where I'm looking at it and going, that one I need to call or phone or do something with now, and the others I can deal with later.
Absolutely.
But the other great thing is, and it also comes back to teamwork, is that rely on the finers to kind of only CC me or send me the mails that are really important. And again, it's about delegation and trusting and people.
And great leadership.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I absolutely agree, Tracey.
So my inbox is not as large as it would normally be, because I know what's there is really important, or the people who work with me have decided that I need to see something. So it's already important.
Absolutely.
And that's about letting go, which is about realizing that you can't be a perfectionist. You are
That must have been
human.
difficult getting to that point, though. Hey, letting go
I think
and
it
knowing
took
that
about
all of
7
these
years.
did
It was that 7-year thing.
really.
Yeah,
Are you there, Kabelo?
We're getting there. You know, it is very difficult. You know, because you can't clone yourself like you mentioned earlier on. But like I said, you know, it's always important that you surround yourself with good people that understand your passion and can deliver that. But there are certain things that you just hold on to yourself that you think no one else can do but yourself. So I know I'm guilty of that, but you know I'm working on it.
Work in
I can't
progress.
tell you the pace, though. So.
Constant work in progress.
It is.
This is
It is.
a constant refinement of who we are.
I think. Tracy, you said so 3 half-hour segments in the day.
Yeah, I
should
mean,
be
that's what we
with-
do, bulk
okay.
standard across the board, obviously depending on your specific job. You know, we spoke about time management being about a choice, but also our technology has become a crutch. I mean, I'm a Mac fan. Just like everybody else, I've got my cell phone and my iPad. I don't know what I would do without them. But I have to keep on constantly setting up processes so that I'm not drawn to that flashy red light. Because studies show that when we're distracted, so maybe we're working on a high-value task and we allow ourselves to get distracted by a new email that's arrived in our inbox or a message that arrived on our phone, it can take us as much as 20 minutes to get back to the same peak focus as we were in the first place.
Or sometimes
and all
never
of those
get
20
back.
minutes add up, and then we complain that we don't have enough time.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's almost, I mean, this technology is fantastic, and really what it should be doing is giving us more time, but it's taking up more of our time. Or
Because we
maybe
don't make
we're
wise
filling up more
choices.
time. Okay, it's the wise choices.
Yeah. So absolutely, you know, if you arrive early for a meeting and you can download, I do this, I'll download quickly my emails and scan through them on my cell phone, see if there's any urgent ones that I need to respond to. You know, that's what technology, where it can help us. But where it hinders us is where we become so addicted to it. We've got some great blog posts on our site at the moment on technology addiction. But where we become so addicted to it that it actually hinders our success instead of helps it.
Well, it's interesting that you spoke about addiction, because I think Kabelo was sort of saying that, I mean, you know, he's looking all the time. He can't stop it. And I wonder if you would be able to tell us, Mandy, on a neurological level, if you're secreting hormones all the time, every time, because you're on call all the time. You're not switching off. I mean, you're giving yourself time out for yoga and pottery and whatever, but you're peaking, aren't you, by looking and having your phone or your iPad, and you're expecting, it's
That
almost
adrenaline rush.
is it the adrenaline?
And there's also a whole lot of neuro transmitters that are released, and our brains are quite plastic, and how we behave becomes very quickly set. So you know, and particularly as children, look at our children and how they are responding to the technology the technology generation, and how their brains will be wired to consume information. But having said that, and the technology really has helped us, and it certainly helps me, but I still urge both my children and the fine people in my organization to pick up the phone and have conversations. You know, conversations are still so much a part of our life, and we can draft an email for 20 minutes with something that we could solve in 5 over the phone so often. And I think we forget that business is built on relationships, and that we can often save time by doing what we used to do, and that's just talk about it.
What do you think, Tracy?
Oh, no, 100% agree. So I mentioned the word leadership earlier, which Mandi and Kabelo are doing fabulously. You know, you need to lead from the top down, but if your leadership, for the listeners, if their leadership is not supplying that for them, they can lead from the bottom up by making better choices. So technology, I love technology. It's made, I mean, our business operates over 2 continents. It's made our lives so easy, so fast. We have a policy, a 24-hour policy, not the 10 minutes as Kabelo goes for. But this immediate sense of gratification, if we prioritize effectively, you'll quickly realize that the 10 minutes is great for the high-value, high-revenue tasks and not great for the lower-revenue, low-focus tasks. And oftentimes, our employees, the staff, I work with a lot of corporate larger environments, it kind of gets lost in translation. So it's a constant mindfulness that we need to have. It's a constant prioritizing. It's a constant conversation, or maybe even like a dance that we need to have to get that balance right. But then it boils down to choice and the choices that we make and the changes that we are prepared to make as a result of those choices.
Tracey, procrastination. Some people really suffer. It's very difficult to take the next step. They kind of putting it off and putting it off, and that eats into so much productive time. What do you have to say about that?
The main reason we procrastinate is we're either overwhelmed, we're afraid of making a bad decision, or we're tired. Those are the three main reasons we procrastinate. And, don't get me started on procrastination. It's my most favorite topic.
Okay.
But, there are so many tools for dealing with procrastination and understanding whether this is just an excuse or once we're aware of it, what we can do about it. We procrastinate. That dates back to the agricultural era. It's an enormous topic. And we want this immediate gratification, but we hold back because we're afraid of unfavorable results.
Okay.
Or we're overwhelmed and don't know where to begin.
Or it's not our area of expertise or whatever.
No, I think that because we live in such a fast world and a world where there's so much skill and knowledge and information, we want it to be perfect. And it comes back to this issue of life is challenging and we're human. And that often, I think, or I see in our business that often people procrastinate because they haven't got it 100% right.
Okay.
And that we actually just need to step in sometimes, make a start, do it, and that we can refine it and get it right as we go. And so there's this fear of it not being 100% right, and coming from me, the perfectionist. It's been a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah, like Tracey was saying now, it's more driven by fear, and that's the thing. There's always implications, and the more you procrastinate, you'll find yourself in a level where you can't cope anymore. I've got a fear of procrastination. My wife always says to me, if I'm restless at night, she always says, "There's something that you haven't done. Wake up and go do it." So it's when I go to bed, you must know that whatever that had to be done is done. So and it also boils down to what Tracey mentioned when she came in, that it's the law of least effort. And the law of least effort is a function of doing things. And when you've got the convenience of technology, do stuff, make decisions, move on, go to the next one. So it's and once you've done that, I find myself by 3:00 every day, I'm relaxed because I've started with the hard things that Tracey mentioned. Start with the hard stuff. Start with things that consume and spend your mind on it. Start with those and deal with them. Get them out of the way, and So it's always easy to do stuff. To start, begin, and move on.
Laugh when you get home.
Oh, I love it. Oh, listen, I have learned so much from all of you, from all three of you.
Thank you.
It's about applying it all. So I want to thank you. Tracey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We've got to have you
be in studio with you.
Well, listen, we're going to have you again on the show because maybe we'll just dedicate a whole show to procrastination. But thank you very much, Tracey. It was lovely chatting.
Awesome. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for your input. That was Tracey Faulkes, CEO of Get Organised. Mandy, before we go, so you're off to New York. You are representing South Africa. It is fine healthcare, but the fact that you were asked to be an executive judge at these awards it's incredible for fine healthcare, but it's incredible for South Africa because it means that we must be producing good work.
Absolutely, it is incredible. South Africa's always been an incredibly creative and entrepreneurial society, and Kabelo represents that. And so and I think in today's world, we're living in a world where developing markets are taking have a voice and taking precedent over the developed markets, and so we really are finding our stage, and it's very exciting as South Africans to be playing on the global stage, but also to be showcasing the new way of doing things in the developing markets. We are really going to take the world by storm.
Oh, I love to. Hey, how's that, Kabelo?
That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you both for coming into the studio. Mandi, all the best. So you'll be back judging. Okay. Well, hopefully you'll give us the results when you get back. Mandi Fine, CEO of Fine Healthcare, and Kabelo Kale, co-founder of Keys Communications. Been great. As I said, I've learned so much. And I hope that you have learned something. First of all, I hope you've been inspired by our highly effective guests, seeing where they've come from, what they've achieved, and looking at time management, looking at prioritizing, looking at procrastinating, looking at having a team or group of people to support you, and very importantly, having a mentor, not being afraid to ask someone that you admire to perhaps sit with you and give you a bit of advice and watch, as Kabelo says, observe. And I just hope you take all of this information with you forward, and hopefully you can make your dreams come true and be the person that you want to be. So I thank you so much for joining me. It has been wonderful. I've really enjoyed myself. Until next week, from me, Niki Seberini. Goodbye.
Hi, my name is Tracey, and I'm the HOD of IT Integration at Bridwin Preparatory School in Melrose. We started using study apps about 6 months ago and have seen astonishing results. We were quite amazed to see how quickly the kids have been able to use study apps and the benefits it has shown with regards to reinforcing what they've already learned inside the classroom. I would highly recommend study apps for any school.
Studyapps.co.za. Conversations with Niki was brought to you by Studyapps.co.za, South Africa's leading education app for tablets.